10 years of silence. 10 years of grief. 10 years of a billionaire wandering through a mansion that felt more like a mausoleum than a home, until a maid's daughter shattered everything with one trembling sentence. "Sir, this boy, he lived with me at the orphanage." Before that moment, Harrison Cole believed there were no more surprises left in life. The world had already taken everything from him: his joy, his marriage, and his son. His power meant nothing. His fortune was dust. His legacy felt like a cruel joke carved into skyscrapers he no longer cared to look at. It was the anniversary. The worst day of every year. Greywood Manor was suffocatingly still, wrapped in that eerie kind of silence that presses on your ribs until breathing feels like a burden. Harrison stood alone in the grand hall, the limestone fireplace towering behind him like a gravestone. The only sound was the steady ticking of the old French regulator clock, a reminder that time moved on even when he didn't. Above the mantel hung the portrait he'd avoided for hours before finally forcing himself to look. Ethan Cole. 4 years old. Smiling. Holding a wooden sailboat like the world was nothing but ocean and possibility. His dark hair was Harrison's. His bright, curious eyes were Eleanor's. That light, his light, had been stolen from him 10 years ago in a crowded sunny city park. A moment of distraction. A scream. A stranger's hand. Then nothing. No answers. No body. No hope. Harrison's life had ended that day. His heart simply forgot how to beat for anything other than pain. He lifted a trembling hand toward the painted cheek of the boy he once tucked into bed every night, and stopped when he heard footsteps behind him. A sound that did not belong on this day. His jaw clenched. His orders were clear: no staff in this wing. No disturbances. Not today. He turned sharply. The new maid, Brenda, stood frozen in the doorway, pale as a ghost. She clutched a dust rag with both hands, but her terror wasn't for him. It was for the small girl peeking out from behind her skirt. A thin, blonde 12-year-old with large blue eyes and hands clasped tightly in front of her. Trembling, but not from fear of Harrison. Something else held her still. "Mr. Cole, I'm so sorry," Brenda stuttered. "My car broke down. I had no one to leave her with. I told her to stay in the kitchen." The girl didn't move. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Her eyes were locked on the portrait. Harrison's irritation sharpened into anger. "This wing is restricted," he said coldly. "You know that." "Yes, sir." "Yes, of course. Come on, Chloe." Brenda tugged the girl's arm. "We need to go. Now." But the girl, Chloe, didn't budge. She took one small step toward the fireplace. Then another. As if pulled by a force older than memory. "That's enough," Harrison snapped. "This is a private room. Leave immediately." Chloe finally turned to look at him. Her face was drained of color. Her blue eyes were wide. Not with fear, but with recognition. "Sir," she whispered. "This boy, he lived with me." Brenda gasped like she'd been stabbed. "Chloe, stop. Don't you say another word." But the girl continued, voice shaking, every syllable slicing through the air like a blade. "He lived with me, at St. Jude's Orphanage." Harrison's world tilted. The room spun. His knees weakened. "What did you say?" His voice was barely a breath. "Repeat it." Brenda burst into panicked tears. "Sir, she's confused. She must be confused. Your son is your son. Dead." Harrison finished for her, numb. "Yes. Everyone knows." Chloe shook her head slowly. "No, sir. He wasn't dead when I knew him. He was older, maybe 9 or 10. We called him Matthew." Harrison felt something inside him tear open, a soundless, violent ripping he hadn't felt in a decade. Matthew. Not Ethan. Matthew. His son, no. A boy. A stranger. A ghost. It made no sense. But then Chloe continued, and every word hit him like a hammer to the ribs. He didn't talk at first. The nuns called him Mute Matthew. He just drew pictures. All the time. Harrison swallowed hard. Ethan had loved drawing, sketching boats and dogs and anything that made him smile. "He drew houses," Chloe said softly. "Big ones. And the ocean." Harrison felt the air leave his lungs. "And a dog," the girl whispered. "A big brown dog. He said his name was Buddy." Harrison staggered back. Buddy. Their chocolate lab. Ethan's shadow. His best friend. A detail no one knew. A detail he never released publicly. A detail only his son could tell. "You're lying," Harrison choked, but his voice crumbled halfway through the sentence. "I'm not," Chloe said, tears pooling. "He was my friend. He told me his real name started with E. He couldn't remember the rest." Harrison grabbed the back of a chair to keep from collapsing. The pain swirling inside him shifted, no longer just grief, but something new. Something dangerous. Hope. A poison he swore never to taste again. Brenda was shaking so violently she could barely stand. "Mr. Cole, please, she's just a child. She doesn't understand." But Harrison wasn't looking at Brenda anymore. He was looking at the girl. The only child in 10 years who dared speak Ethan's memory into the world. "Matthew," Harrison repeated, his voice hollow. "What else do you remember?" The girl reached into her dress pocket and pulled out a small folded drawing, edges worn, colors faded. She handed it to him with trembling fingers. Harrison unfolded it. 2 stick figures, one taller boy, one small blonde girl, holding hands beside a brown scribbled dog. His throat closed. The world blurred. "He gave it to me," Chloe whispered. "He said, so I wouldn't forget I had a protector." Protector. His son, protective since the day he learned to walk, defending another child when no one had protected him. Harrison's hands shook so violently he nearly tore the paper in half. When did you last see this boy?" he whispered. Chloe lowered her eyes. 3 years ago. He ran away from the orphanage. He said he remembered a black iron gate with a letter on it. He said his dad was rich and would come for him. Harrison froze. The gates of Greywood Manor. The massive wrought iron arch. Held a single letter at the center. A stylized C. For Cole. His heart thrashed against his ribs. "And then," he forced out. Chloe's lips trembled. "And then, the orphanage burned down. A week later. The records, everything gone." Something dark and cold slid into Harrison's chest. Not grief. Not hope. Rage. A controlled, calculating rage that felt frighteningly familiar. The same fury he once used to tear apart corporate empires. This wasn't a tragedy. This was a cover-up. A clean-up. Someone took his son. Someone hid him. Someone erased him. And now someone might have destroyed the last place he ever lived. Harrison lifted his gaze to Chloe. "You and your mother," he said quietly, voice steel, "are no longer staff in this house. You will stay in the East Guest Wing under full security." Brenda sobbed. "Sir, I don't understand." "You don't need to," he said sharply. "You only need to do exactly as I say. From this moment on, your daughter is under my protection." He took one step closer. "And you," he said to Chloe, voice dropping, "are going to help me find my son." Chloe's small fingers clutched the locket around her neck, her thumb tracing the cold metal. Harrison's eyes followed every movement, reading every heartbeat, every flicker of fear, every trace of courage. He was no longer just a father grieving a lost child. He was a man about to reclaim what had been stolen from him, no matter the cost. "David will explain everything," Harrison said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "You will tell him every detail you know about Matthew. Every drawing, every word, every habit. Nothing is too small." Chloe nodded. Her throat tightened. She had never seen a man look like this, powerful, dangerous, and utterly alive in a way that both terrified and fascinated her. She glanced at Brenda, who was still pale, her hands trembling as they rested on her daughter's shoulders. Harrison's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, only to harden again as he spoke. "You must understand, Chloe, if what you say is true, the people who took him may still be watching. And they will not stop until they think he is lost forever. You are a target now. Do you understand?" Chloe swallowed hard, then nodded. "Yes, sir." "Good," Harrison said, straightening. "Then we move quickly. I've already cleared the East Wing. It will be your quarters for as long as it takes. Nothing, no phone, no visitor, no staff, unless I authorize it, can come near you. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Chloe whispered again. Harrison turned to Brenda. You will assist her. You will obey every order. This is no longer your home as it was. You are under my protection, but under my command. Any deviation, and you both could be endangered. Am I clear?" Brenda swallowed, nodding. "Yes, sir. Crystal clear." "Good." "Now," Harrison said, striding toward the secure line on his desk. He pressed the button, summoning David, his head of security. Within minutes the man entered, a silent, imposing presence in a black suit, his gaze cold and precise, taking in everything in the room. "David," Harrison said without preamble. "Escort them to the East Wing. Nothing leaves or enters that wing without your authorization. You will stay with them. Understand?" David nodded, expression unreadable. "Understood, sir." Chloe followed David and Brenda through the long corridors of Greywood Manor. Every step echoed in the cavernous hallways, amplifying her fear and excitement. She had never seen such grandeur, never imagined that a man could command wealth so vast, so absolute. Yet beneath it, she could sense the grief, the raw intensity that seemed to radiate from Harrison like heat from a furnace. When they reached the East Wing, David opened the doors to a luxurious suite. A sitting room, 2 bedrooms, and a small private study awaited them. Everything was pristine. Everything was secure. Chloe stepped to the window, looking out over the manicured gardens that stretched toward the cliffside, the ocean beyond. "Mama. I'm scared," she whispered, her voice small and fragile. Brenda pulled her close. "I know, sweetheart. I know." Harrison entered behind them, and Chloe felt his presence before she saw him. He did not speak. He did not need to. His aura alone told her that everything had changed. He knelt slightly, bringing his eyes level with hers. "You did the bravest thing today," he said, voice rough with emotion. "You told the truth. That truth may be the only thing that brings your friend home." Chloe looked down at the locket. "Grandpa says the truth is a shield," she whispered. Harrison's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability showing through the steel. "A shield," he repeated. "Then hold on tight, Chloe. We are about to face a storm." The next hours were a blur of calls, investigations, and meticulous planning. Harrison commanded resources few could even imagine. Private investigators, forensic experts, legal teams, but none of it compared to what he now needed, the truth unfiltered, from the only living person who had known Ethan, who had known Matthew. David sat with Chloe, gently coaxing her to tell every detail. The little girl's memory was astonishingly precise. The layout of the orphanage, the boys' routines, the teachers, the older kids who had tormented him, the nuns who had loved him, the fire that destroyed the records. Who else knew him? David asked softly, jotting down notes. "No one outside the orphanage," Chloe said. "Maybe the volunteers. But no one who mattered. The ones who could find him. After the fire, everyone assumed he was gone. That's why Mama had to adopt me quickly. I was one of the last ones safe." Harrison, watching from the doorway, clenched his fists. His mind raced. Someone had deliberately burned St. Jude's, erasing every trace of his son. That meant Matthew's disappearance wasn't random, it was orchestrated. By midnight, Harrison had mobilized his private investigators. Satellite imagery, traffic cameras, city records, all cross-referenced for any clue of the boy's whereabouts in the years since the fire. And then, a single name emerged from the darkness: Dennis. The same boy Chloe had mentioned, the one who had tried to steal her locket years ago. Dennis had vanished from public records as well, but hints remained: juvenile shelters, foster homes, and small-town sightings. "This is him," Harrison muttered, pointing at a grainy photograph on the computer screen. Matthew, older now, eyes still bright and curious. "This is Ethan. My son." Chloe gasped, her small hands gripping the edge of the desk. He's alive." "Yes," Harrison said, voice low and resolute. "And I will find him." The next morning, Harrison arranged a secure vehicle. Chloe and Brenda rode inside, shielded by tinted windows and 2 armed guards. Harrison drove himself, scanning every detail of the city, every alley, every street corner that Matthew could have wandered. He was relentless, unforgiving, a storm in human form. Finally, a small coastal town far from the city, where a man matching Matthew's age had been seen frequently at a local library, always sketching, always alone, yet careful to avoid attention. Harrison arrived at the town just before dusk. The air smelled of salt and pine. He found the library, a small brick building with ivy crawling up the walls. Inside, the boy sat at a table, head bent over a sketch pad. His eyes lifted slowly, as if sensing something he could not explain. "Matthew," Harrison said softly, his voice carrying across the quiet library. The boy froze. Recognition flashed in his eyes, bright, sharp, alive. He stood, hesitant, uncertain, and then ran. Harrison followed, not with anger, not with aggression, but with something fiercer, love. A father's love, honed by a decade of grief, sharpened into purpose. The boy ran toward the cliffs at the edge of town, the ocean roaring beneath. Harrison's heart thundered. "Ethan. It's me. Dad." The boy stopped, trembling, facing the man he had long forgotten, or perhaps had always remembered in a distant corner of his heart. Recognition bloomed fully now, shattering years of fear and confusion. "Dad." His voice was barely a whisper, a mixture of disbelief and hope. Harrison closed the distance between them. Tears streamed down his face. "Yes. It's me. I've come for you. I've never stopped looking for you." The boy ran into Harrison's arms, a decade of lost years compressing into a single shuddering embrace. Chloe, watching from behind, felt her own tears fall freely. She had been the link, the bridge between father and son, the keeper of memory and truth. Brenda stood nearby, awestruck, as Harrison whispered into Ethan's hair, "I will never let anyone take you from me again. Never. You're my son. My light. My heart." The boy, once mute and frightened, clung to him tightly. "I knew you'd come," he whispered. "I never stopped hoping." Harrison's lips pressed against his son's forehead. "I promised, Ethan. And I will always keep my promise." As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the ocean gold and crimson, Harrison realized something he hadn't in 10 years, that hope could survive even the deepest grief. That love, unyielding, fierce, eternal, could bring back what was thought lost forever. Chloe's hand found Harrison's shoulder. "We did it," she said softly. "Yes," Harrison replied, voice rough but triumphant. "Together." And for the first time in a decade, Greywood Manor felt alive again. The halls that had echoed with sorrow now hummed with a quiet certainty that a father had reclaimed his son, that the past had been faced and conquered, and that no darkness could ever truly erase the bonds of love. Harrison knew the road ahead would not be easy. Answers would come slowly. Threats would linger. But for the first time, he had the boy in his arms, and that was enough. "For now. Let's go home, Ethan," he whispered. "We've been apart for too long." The boy nodded, smiling faintly, the sailboat of his childhood still alive in his eyes. Harrison took his hand. Together, they walked away from the cliffs, from the shadows, from the silence of 10 long years, stepping into a future reclaimed by love, hope, and the unbreakable bond of family.